Hi everyone, and welcome to another video. So today I'm gonna take the dinosaur that I finished in the previous video, and I'm gonna do a retopology in Maya. At first I thought to do an automatic retopology here in ZBrush, but I already know that I'm never gonna get the control and precision that I want for a production mesh. So instead I'm gonna do a manual retopology in Maya, and it shouldn't take too long. I mean, this is a symmetrical model, so I only need to make it half size. So the first thing we want to do is to export this guy in Maya, but this is a 52.8 million point, which means that it's 104 million triangles mesh. This is not Maya is not gonna be able to import a mesh of this size, so we need to reduce this mesh. So there are a couple of ways we can do that. So let's go to solo mode first, because this is the mesh that I'm most interested in. And the first thing we can do, we can drop, let's see, if we drop a couple of levels here, let's see how much. Okay, 3 million. This is already more doable. Now I'm gonna click on delete higher just for this purpose. I'm not gonna save this mesh. This model is gonna be discarded, so bear in mind that I'm gonna delete the highest resolution just to create an exportable low resolution mesh for Maya. I am not going to save this, so delete higher, and actually I'm gonna delete lower as well. Now I have a 3 million mesh, much more easy to handle. Then I'm gonna go here to Z plugin, and I'm gonna find Decimation master, and I'm just gonna click on pre-process current first. So ZBrush is gonna go through this mesh, analyzing it, and it's gonna calculate, the algorithm is running and calculate all the structure that it needs to recreate. This is gonna take a few seconds, as you can see from the bar here on the top. And let's see what we have, what it's done. Actually, this is the pre-process, so the mesh is not gonna change. Should take a couple of seconds. Alright, reordering and writing file to disk. Alright, now once this is done, go back to the plugin and let's set a target. For example, let's set this to, I don't know, 100k poly, just an example, and click on decimate current. Let's see what we got. Okay, it made these. So obviously this is not what we want. This is a little bit too low res, so let's bump it up to 500k and see what we got. Yes, that's more like it. So as you can see, we have a 500 mesh triangle, which is 250,000 points. So it might be a little bit difficult to see in the video, but if I zoom in really closely, you can see that now this mesh is made of triangles. This is made of many triangles, and this is great for exporting. For example, if you have to do like a 3D printing, or like in this case you want to export to an external program without killing the memory. So with this we can export it. So let's go scroll down, and I'm gonna click on export, and I'm gonna uncheck group just to be sure that I'm gonna export one mesh to Maya, and then I'm gonna click on export. So from here I'm going to create a new folder. I'm gonna call it Maya, and here I'm gonna dinosaur decim for decimation, and I'm gonna click save, and here I have my decimated mesh. Now the other object that I need to do are the eyes, and I'm gonna export the eyes as they are. So this is eyes, and the claw. So I'm gonna do the same for the claws here. I'm gonna go to Z plugin, again pre-process current, and I don't really need too many polygons for this one. Alright, let's see, maybe 50k. Let's see, decimate current. Yeah, I can even go lower. Let's try 25k decimate current. I think this is enough. I still have a lot of details, so let's export this one. So these are the claws. I don't need to do the teeth because the teeth were originally already made in Maya. So if I scroll down, as you can see, this is already a good topology that we can use. So those are fine. And for the tongue, I'm just gonna do again, I'm gonna reduce to the lowest, and I'm just gonna export it as it is. This is gonna be the tongue, and export. Alright, so I don't need ZBrush anymore. Again, I'm not gonna save this scene because I've done some damage here. I could obviously go back in history and undo everything, but since I don't need this anymore, I'm just gonna close ZBrush and go back into Maya where I can start the retopology. Alright, this is Maya 2017. So I'm gonna get my 4 OBJ, and I'm just gonna drag them here in the scene. And as you can see, my object is very tiny, and not only that, but also it seems that it's not even in the center for some reason, even if in ZBrush it was symmetrical and in the center of the scene. So we're gonna have to address this problem. So first thing we want to do, we're gonna select all the objects and group them, and then I'm gonna get this group here. First thing we want to do is scale this guy up. So let's scale it a little bit, let's say 10 times. Alright, and then we are gonna move it here, and let's go to orthographic view from the top, and let's see if we can move this guy in the middle, kind of like that. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but alright. So let's keep this guy here, and as long as as long as we don't freeze the transformations on this group, we will be able to bring it back to the original size and position when we want to export our retopologized mesh. So let's get started. First of all, let's save this scene. So save as, and I'm gonna call this Retopo 01. All right, now we are ready to roll. So first thing we want to do, let's work with the body for now, so we don't need to see the rest. So I can Control H to hide them. And the first thing we want to do with this selected, we're gonna go here to this magnet icon, and I'm gonna click it. So this is gonna make this item live. So as you can see, I'm no longer able to select it from here. I can only select it from the outliner. And once it's selected, is this dark gray. So this is our active selection. So from here, we're gonna do our modeling tools, and now as you can see, live surface here as a transform constraint is active, which means that once we apply these operations to this model, that's gonna take in consideration this live surface, which is this dinosaur. Another thing that we can do, we can activate the symmetry, and it should be we can either do object X or world X. Just to be sure, let's do world X and click on quad draw. So if I click now, as you can see that it's mirroring what I'm doing on the world X axis. So let's focus on the head first. Let me just real quick, I'm gonna select the camera, and from the attributes I'm just gonna change the angle of view to something like 30, so I don't have such a insane perspective when I zoom in. Alright, so let's go back to our modeling tools, and so as a general rule, when you do a retopology of any model, you want to identify first your the main flow of your mesh, the main direction where your mesh is flowing. So if we start with the head, we want to follow kind of like this shape and this shape and this shape and this shape and so on. So our retopology, it's not going to be super detailed. It's going to be quite low poly first, and then we can eventually refine it later. So let's start with this area here. So I can just drop some points, a bunch of points here, like that. And then if I hold shift, as you can see, these points here are connecting. So I can go and connect this point and this point here, like that. And I can click and drag to adjust the placement of these points, or I can relax by holding shift. The icon changes to this relax icon, but at the moment we don't need to do that. So let's go here towards the eye, and let's try to get this eye blocked in, so something like that, like so. gonna make some more points here. Just to maybe like here. So maybe I'm gonna create something like here. Actually, don't need this. Let's try to get something that it's so I have 4 here. Let's get something like that. So I have 4 on top and 4 on the bottom. Alright. Something like that. And you can just keep this guy like so, and then I can refine them later. Alright, so let's add a few more points. Before start connecting these points, I'm just gonna do one pass where I just go through the main areas of the face. Let's move here to the nose, and obviously we do want to have these going on here, this nostril shape going on. So this is gonna be something like this, maybe. Something like that. And maybe it comes down like this. And here, let's see, instead of doing that, let's make one more point here. It's going to be a little bit more clean. And we can actually do the same here. Let's see, perhaps something like this. Alright, for now. I'm trying to keep, as a first pass, try to keep as low poly as possible. I will add more details when I need it. One thing you don't want to do is overly complicate your topology if you don't need to. So keep it low poly and simple. Alright. Okay. Something like that here. Oops. Alright. Something like this. Another thing you can do, you can obviously draw points like this and connect it with a shift, or if you press tab near the bottom, you see that the cursor says extend, so you can click and drag to extend your edge. And if you want to extend along like the whole loop, you can do it by, when you're hovering over like this, holding tab, you can right click and it says extend, and you can choose between border, edge, or loop. So if I can go loop, obviously you're gonna extend the whole loop, which in this case goes up to here. So this is something you need to keep in consideration. For now I'm just gonna keep edge, so I can just do this, and I can just keep extending my topology here. And when you go in the middle, these vertices should they should connect. Yeah. Alright, finally they connected. I'm not sure why Maya is doing that. Looks like a bug. That would not surprise me one bit. So let's go back here. Let's pull this guy up a little bit more. Like so. Alright. Got my first loop there. And again, we can increase or decrease the number of these segments later if we need to. Just wanted to keep it simple, low and simple for now. So let's do the same here. I'm just gonna go and let's see. Let me move this guy out of the way. Okay, it seems that for some reason when it goes too close to the border, Maya it's not able to keep the symmetry. That's interesting. Let's see if we can get it to connect. Alright, it finally connected. Okay, so I'm gonna extend this. Alright. And we can think at this connection later. So for now I just want to continue and do the main shape, the main shapes here. So this goes here. This goes here. Like that. Let's ignore that point for now. There's two guys that will probably connect there at some point. And alright, so something like that. And let's continue down here. So here we could go like this. And then continue this way. And here there's another part that needs our attention. So just add a few points here and there. Here, 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 and here. All right. That's where the ears are located. And we can just connect this guy there. And again, maybe here I'm gonna make some more points. Along this curve. Oops. Something like that. We can probably connect these two. And we can probably connect these two as well. Maybe something like this. All right. And we can connect these guys as well. And all right, that's okay. I don't really like this connections here. I might want to add one loop here. A little bit cleaner. And at this point I can just connect these two guys there. Alright, that looks a little bit cleaner. Something like that. Alright, so you got the idea. So I'm gonna continue making the retopology, and I will speed up the video and just do some commentary, so you don't need to see an hour or more long video of me just rambling. So please enjoy. Alright, so I started from those bigger scales in the back, as you can see, and I'm trying to keep again the poly count as low as possible. I'm just trying to get the main shape to follow with the flow, along with the flow of the topology. And this is pretty straightforward. I'm basically tracing out the scales, the shape of these scales. They're kind of round, and they move all the way to the end of the tail. And then I just try and adjust a little bit to see if I can fit a little bit better the contour. So next I move on to the side scales. Those are basically the same, so I think it's a good idea to continue with those. And then I move on to the fingers. I decided to keep the finger about 6 faces, so I'm doing half right now. So the radius of my finger is going to be 6 faces, and then I just connect the along the hand, the wrist, and climbing up to make to keep the flow as clean as possible while trying to preserve the shapes. And on the elbow I do a little bit of round shape there, so that's gonna help me if I'm gonna put the bones, if I'm gonna move a little bit for a pose or something. And I'm gonna do the same for the legs, so I got these scales there. And as a general rule, always start with the biggest, more obvious shapes, and then I move on to the toes. For the toes, since they're a little bit bigger, I decided to get them to get the radius of the toe of 8 faces instead of 6. So I got the first 4, and I'm climbing up along the foot, and just following the flow of the geometry, climbing up the legs. Not too concerned of keeping the polygon too much the same size, but at the same time I'm also trying to avoid to get like very long polygons and very small polygons in the same mesh. Ideally you want to have roughly the same size polygon, but it doesn't have to be a rule. It's just it helps, but it doesn't have to be a rule. As you can see again there, for the foot, I done that round shape again to help me out with a possible pose or animation. And now moving around those tiny scales, it's a little bit tricky to get a nice flow when the shape of the leg is interrupted by those scales. So basically building around them, and I keep it clean when possible, but like in this case I have to do some sacrifice for the cleanliness of the topology in favor of those shapes of the scales there. And climbing up the leg again, always trying to maintain the flow of the mesh, and then trying to figure out a way that I can connect my large quads to the smallest one coming from the scales of the back. And I kind of had to experiment there. Sometimes I could do a clean connection, other times I had to kind of improvise some not so clean cut. That's because of the irregularity of those scales on the scales of the side, basically. And then again, basically once you've defined the main scales, you basically the only thing you have left is to connect the remaining areas together and try to keep a fairly clean topology, although it's not always possible, but I'm not too much concerned about it. I keep it clean when possible, and when it's not, it is what it is. And then here I'm doing the arms where the shoulder are supposed to be, and then trying to move along on the body, connected with the leg there. And again, when I don't need to get tiny polygons, I just go and trying to make them a bit larger, like in this area here. The side of the body is not going to have much movement, so I can afford to have a little bit larger polygons there. And I'm also using sometimes I use the smooth function to try to even out a little bit my topology, although it's not super important to do it because I will bring that back in ZBrush later, and I will project my mesh as my subdivided mesh. So, and here I'm doing the other side of the hands, so I'm doing the fingers. As you can see, very low poly, but in the end I'm pretty sure that it's gonna be fine. And just keep connecting the other side by keeping the same flow and the same number of loops, and then smooth it out. And yeah, again, side of the body. Sometimes I made mistakes and I cut too much or too few, and then I come back and change the number of cuts to adapt to my new flow, because I'm not very good at knowing what I'm supposed to cut, so I'm just doing some random cuts sometimes, and then I adjust it later, and then again smooth it out a little bit. And for the tail, I just continue the extrusion, starting from the middle of those scales and then going down. This is another kind of a tedious operation. Do the same type of topology over and over, but it has to be done because I can't leave the model unfinished, so that needs to be done. And yeah, I keep doing the same structure, identical, until the end of the tail. And basically what I'm doing, I'm reducing the number of polygons the more I go down. So this structure here allows me to do exactly that. And then again, for the tail, I need to do another kind of like a connection to reduce the polygons, because basically the length or the width becomes smaller. The width of the tail becomes smaller, so I need to decrease the number of quads towards the end, and that means that I need to do some cut. And when the body's done, I move to the face or the head, and I'm trying to connect the side that this part is like the mouth, that meat around the mouth that basically extends or shrinks when it opens or closes the mouth, and move to the side of the face, again trying to maintain some flow there. And at this point I don't really need there too much detail because those parts are very rigid, but I do want to have a little bit more polygons around the eye and around the ears, basically all the parts that have cavities. It's always a good idea to add a few more loops there, so when you subdivide it later, you're still gonna maintain that cavity in nice and clean. And for the inside of the mouth, again, I don't really need too many polygons. It's not something that you're gonna see very often, very close, so I think keeping it low poly, just an overall flow there, should be enough. And I'm just trying to keep the minimum number of polygons to follow the underlying shape without complicating my life too much. And then simply connect the rest like I did before. And the mouth is done. And then move to the top of the head. The top of the head, it's a little bit tricky because it's very unregular. The nostril, the nose, and that the top of the head, it's all irregular. The sides keep enlarging and shrinking depending on the area, so I kind of have to play around there. Keep climbing up on top of the head. Again, this is a little bit tricky part. Kind of need to figure it out on the go what to do, but the principle is exactly the same as the rest of the body, so you just try to follow the flow of your mesh, and things are gonna be fine. Then connecting the remaining parts, and again on top of the neck where those scales are, I'm gonna reproduce again that pattern that I used on the tail. In here probably I'm gonna remove some polygons to try to keep a little bit low. At some point I realized I was going to make the topology a little bit too the poly count was a little bit too high, so I just basically reduced it a little bit, went back and removed some polygons there and make it larger. And then the last scales around the mouth, and these are the same as the others. So first I try some connection but didn't work out, so back again with the same structure to reduce the number of polygons around, and then connect basically the remaining polygons. Here I'm doing the fingers, and again they're very low poly, but it's probably gonna be fine in the end. And the toes, I'm adding a little bit of a loop inside so it's easier to connect, and then finishing up the toes and the bottom of the foot, and that's pretty much done. I realized here that I had one triangle. I tried to keep everything by quad, but at the end I got one triangle. Unfortunately, I was not able to remove it, so I just left it there. In the end, it's not gonna hurt. And then after the body, I move on to the claws, and instead of doing one by one, I just make one claw. And once finished doing that, basically what I did, I duplicated the object and I moved it around, tried to adjust the shape over the other claws, because I wanted to have exactly the same topology, and having to do that one by one would have been way too tedious and way too much time consuming. So I just decided to make one, and here I'm doing the I'm finishing up here. I'm not gonna close it on the back because you'll never see that part, so I'm just gonna leave it open. And I believe that's pretty much it for the claw geometry. So what I did there, as you can see, I was still working with the symmetry, so I removed the symmetry, delete the other side, and now I duplicated my my claw, and I'm roughly placing it manually over the others. Then I will reproject these in ZBrush, so any imperfection will be taken care of with the when I do the projection there. But just you know, I need to place as close as possible in here, so that's what I'm basically doing. And I believe this is the last one, so I just place it. And finally the tongue, just made some very simple topology, really nothing fancy here. Just go along and follow the flow again like I did for the rest of the body, and then smooth it out a little bit, follow the flow, close the gaps, and that was pretty much it. The whole operation took about 6 hours, and you saw that only in about 20 minutes. So yeah. Oh, last but not least, for the eyes I just took a sphere and I just rotated in place and adjusted the placement, and that's pretty much it for the topology. So now I group everything under the original group, and I reset the scale to 1 and the translation to 0, so I can bring it back into ZBrush, and it's gonna be in the same exact spot there. So I'm exporting my objects there, and now I'm back into ZBrush, and I'm just importing my topology back in here. And what I want to do, basically, I just want to project my topology on top of my high poly mesh. So I'm not going to use the detail from that, but just to adjust the final shape to make sure that the shape fits perfectly. So here I'm isolating just the body. I'm reducing the going down to, I don't know, level 2 or 3. I don't need to have the highest resolution poly. And I'm smoothing out my retopology mesh, and then I'm going to project my mesh on top of the high poly one. There you go. Looks pretty good. And just to be sure, I'm just subdividing one more, and I'm just checking like the cavities, that they're all correctly projected, and they are. And then I'm gonna do one last projection on a little bit higher subdivision, just to be sure, and then a little bit of smooth, just to have my topology applied perfectly. And this is my retopologized body projected on my high poly mesh, so it fits perfectly. And I'm gonna do now the same for the claws. So the claws, since they're not closed on the back, what I'm gonna have to do, basically I'm gonna have to go and modify. I'm gonna use my move brush, and you're gonna see that in a second. I'm gonna use my move brush to correct. Basically, when I do the projection on the back, I got some artifacts, some weird projection going on there. So in order to fix that, I'm gonna go and use my morph brush, since I stored the morph brush before doing the projection. Morph brush, and then I'm gonna move with the transparency on. I'm gonna move my geometry a little bit on top, making sure that my geometry does not go outside the high poly mesh, because otherwise when I project I'm gonna get those weird artifacts, and I don't want that. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just moving my mesh to stay inside the volume, and then just masking that and reproject. As you can see, there's still some artifact present there, so I'm gonna fix that as well. And it would have probably been much easier if I would have closed those claws, making the geometry for the part that you don't see, but I didn't, so that's what I had to do in order to fix these problems with the projection on the edges. And basically I'm gonna have to do that for every claw. Just combination of move brush and projection again, and see if I can fix. Once projected, I'm gonna select the part that I want to project and make sure that that's projected correctly, and do some smoothing here and there. And basically, yeah, I had to repeat the same thing for all my claws, and again inflating a little bit, moving around, just to try and keep it inside the volume of the high poly mesh that I'm going to project, to avoid that weird projection artifact. And going back and forward also in a level of details, so I can adjust things there. And as you can see, another one there. Again, morph brush to restore the original shape, and then move brush to move around my my mesh along the edges, making sure that it doesn't come out, doesn't extend more than the borders of my high poly mesh. And then, yeah, I'm basically repeating that for all my claws. Selecting and project, so that looks fine. And then moving up with the fingers, the claws in the fingers. I'm doing the same here. So zoom there, and again using my morph brush to restore the original shape and move it there. Doing the same here. And yeah, well, when that's done, I just check that they're all okay. And then I'm gonna do the same for yeah, I believe for the claws I kept the subdivision 2 as my new subdivision 1, so I have a little bit more polygons there. And then from the Z plugin menu, I just mirrored the claw on the other side, and then merge the two subtools to have one. So I got perfect symmetry. And I'm gonna do the same with the eye, just mirror there, mirror that and connect and merge the two together. And then I'm gonna do the same for the tongue. I'm gonna subdivide a little bit and project it over my my tongue there. As you can see, I found out that I got a little hole there that wasn't visible. I tried to weld the vertices in ZBrush, but it didn't work out. So for the tongue, I went back to Maya, and real quickly I just weld the vertices there and re-exported it again. I'm not sure why that happened, so I import it back, and now it's fixed. So again, project it over my high poly tongue just to get a better fit, and that's the end of it. So basically now I just select all my retopology, including the teeth. The teeth were already done, so I just didn't need to do anything. They're already a low poly at level 1 of subdivision, and basically that's it. This is the final dinosaur. I'm just gonna export all the pieces together back in Maya, so I'm gonna have a scene in Maya that has the full dinosaurs with all the mirrored part, and it's projected already over the high poly mesh, so it fits perfectly. And here I'm basically just exporting back my my OBJ, overriding the existing ones, and save the scene. So I got that done, and back in Maya I'm just gonna make a new scene with with my new OBJs that I just exported. I don't need the MTL for that. Selecting all my OBJ, drag and drop there. Again, I'm gonna make a group because the object is very small, and I'm gonna increase it about 10 times again, and I'm gonna move it around so it's about in the center of the scene. And I can also adjust a little bit to put it in the middle, like there. And that's it. That's the final topology of my dinosaurs. Again, the whole process took about 6 hours, probably even more, so as for reference. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the video. So in the next one we are going to do some UVs. Thank you for watching. Bye. Thank you for watching the full video. If you want, you can support me on Patreon, subscribe to my channel, and make sure to watch my latest video and other videos in my playlist. See you the next time.